Dan Patlansky in for Oppiradio. Dan, thanks for coming through. This is your latest album is called Dear Silent Thieves.
That's it.
Tell me about your new album.
Well, the title's an interesting one to start with. I was on tour with a guy called Everlast last year. He's like a rapper from the 90s in Germany. And he pretty much, cut a very long story short, he caught guys talking in the middle of his show. He's quite a heavy guy, and he freaked out, and refused to play until these guys shut up. And I kind of took so much inspiration from that because, as a South African musician, we all have had that so many times, that small intimate acoustic show or something like that. So I thought, let me make a point and actually call the album Dear Silent Thieves. So it's kind of like addressing it to him. But musically, it's pretty much just what I've always been doing, like the good old blues rock sort of thing, which is my passion. And I just think we concentrate a little bit more on the songwriting this time opposed to the last couple of albums.
Tell me more about the songwriting. How much different is it from the previous one?
Well, it's quite different. I mean, on previous albums, songwriting's always been a thing, but that was like 100% focus of songs, this album, and then we focus on the performance and the playing and the singing and all that stuff. So we just wanted to arrive at the studio with the best possible songs that we could write, and that was, I think, the big difference between this album and any others. It was just the quality of songs and the emphasis and focus on the songs.
And this is also the first album that you did not produce yourself.
Yeah.
Was that really difficult for you?
It was, in a way, because you're kind of handing over all the creative reins to someone else, and it takes a lot of trust, and it's scary, man. But you really got to trust the producer that you're kind of employing to do the job. And I chose Theo Kraus for this album, who's a fantastic producer, and I'm very glad I did. It took me a week to kind of really trust him, but once I kind of checked out his way of doing things, his way of approaching songs, the way of arranging songs, you kind of put more trust into him, and it's a lot easier to hand over those reins to say, cool, go with it, I'm going to trust you.
And how did that decision come about? Was it just one day, okay, maybe I shouldn't produce the next one, or did he approach you?
Well, I've worked with Theo before on mixing, never as, from the beginning with him producing the album from scratch. I just always loved his work. He's a very good friend of mine, so I thought that would be a good thing to work with. And I thought just to change things up a bit. I mean, not that I mind producing my own albums. I really enjoy that. It's great. I just thought, let's see what happens if I get another head involved. As the key decision maker and the key direction maker. Obviously, I still had a lot of say in what happens with the album, but it's just nice to sit back and then all the decisions with someone else. So I thought, let's do that for a change,
And you can focus more on the music then.
Exactly. As I say, it was tough, but you know what I mean? Like, there's this big thing that sits on your shoulders all the time when you're producing the album, because if the album's a complete failure or it's just not a good album, it's no one else's fault but yourself. You know what I mean? Because you produced it as well as played on it.
How much of your work is old school blues, with the one-liners being repeated, the nostalgic, the sad feeling, compared to modern blues?
I've obviously moved a little bit away from that traditional blues, that I used to do, because I was completely a traditional blues guy. But it's still like a massive passion of mine. So on every album I do, it doesn't matter how modern the blues gets, because I think this new album, Dear Silent Thieves, is a perfect example of what modern blues is. It's still blues, it's still rooted in the blues, and it's, it is blues. It's just not that traditional 12-bar sort of stuff. But I always like just one or two tracks on the album is to have a traditional blues, because that's where I came from. You know what I mean? And it's just good to kind of pay homage to where I came from, and it's just still such a massive passion of mine.
Now, clearly you have a big passion for blues, it's obvious. What happens to you when you pick up the guitar and you play one of your favorite blues songs? Because I've seen you perform in front of 20,000 people, and I've also seen you perform in front of 500 people, like in Mozambique. But you literally lose yourself. You don't lose the audience, but you go somewhere. What happens to you? What do you go through?
I think that's an interesting question. I've been asked that before. I don't really go anywhere. Obviously I love what I do, so it's like the coolest job in the world, and I enjoy what I do. But I feel that for me, like, if it's an hour-long gig, it literally feels like 5 minutes on stage. So I don't know if I go anywhere. It's just the time just flies by so quickly. And like, you think, wow, you look at your watch and you feel like, wow, it's already been like 50 minutes and we've got 10 minutes to go, type of thing. So I don't know why that happens, but it really does. It just goes quick. It just goes by so quickly,
And then I'm going to ask you something about when you go into that space, you make a certain face.
Yeah, for sure.
Do you know what face I'm talking about? Okay, so what is that? Is that just focusing, or is it enjoyment?
I think so many guys ask me, they're like, do you do that face on purpose? And the honest truth is, if I was going to do a face on purpose, I would do a way prettier one. You know what I mean? If I was gonna do a face, you know. But I think it's just, the blues and the blues rock, especially the blues. It's such a feel music, It's all improvised on the night, solos, all that sort of stuff. And on a night when you're really feeling it, I just can't help myself. You know what I mean? And I think just the music flows completely through you, and it shows in your face, it shows in your body language. And it's something that even if I think I'm not doing it, I'm doing it. I think, I'm not actually making faces, but I actually am. You know what I mean? It just kind of happens. I think it's like older habits die hard type of thing. You know what I mean?
Now, obviously you rehearse for your shows beforehand, but there's a lot of improvisation, a lot of solos.
Yes.
What is the concept behind that? And is there certain rules that go with that? Is there a certain timeline? Okay, you can solo for 10 minutes and the rest is like strict to what we practiced?
Well, I mean, we actually only practice like a couple times a year because we tour so much. So we often practice in sound checks if we've got a new idea. It's mainly before like a new album that we'll get into the rehearsal room and practice. But there's no real strict times. I mean, every night a guitar solo will be completely different. It's how it's felt. But obviously the structure of the song will stay the same. I mean, the words are the words, the verses are the verses, the choruses are the choruses. But when it comes to solo time, I mean, we'll take it to a different area every single night. So if I'm really battling on a night and not feeling it, the solos will be like way shorter, way more brief, and I just try and get out of there type of thing. But on other nights when you're really feeling it and it's really going somewhere, they'll obviously be longer and it'll move everywhere. So there's actually no rules to it. And obviously you can't solo for too long because you'll bore an audience, and also you'll end up playing one song for 45 minutes. No. And that's not ideal, yeah.
When it comes to lyrics, how important is it for blues music? Is it necessary, or can you completely leave it out?
I think in modern blues and in the old blues, I mean, lyrics are just as important as anything. When I was younger, I only focused on the guitar playing thing, and I sang more of the cliched blues sort of stuff and did a lot of like renditions of old blues songs, which I still do, which I love doing. But I think in the modern blues thing, it opens up this giant spectrum and scope to write about not just whiskey and women and the cliched stuff that blues guys write about, but to write about, stuff that happens to you in your life, stuff you're observing. And that's a very cool thing for me. And I mean, I always write lyrics right at the end when I'm writing, but it's a great, great thing for me and a great creative outlet to try and write something that is modern, but still sticks into, the classic blues thing. You don't want to, that's the trick, is balancing the two.
Do you still sometimes find when you stand on stage, I mean, you've been doing this for years and years, and you've traveled all over the world, that sometimes you feel, man, I actually don't know that much, and I've got so much more to learn?
Man, it's like pretty much every show. It's any art, I believe, is exactly that. There's no black and white thing where, you get to that level and you get a badge that says, cool, you at CEO level or something like that. It's such a gray area, and it doesn't matter how good you get or how good you want to be. Like, I mean, when I was a kid, I always thought, I want to be as good as that guy down the road. And then when you get there, then that's never good enough. You always want to be as, you want to get better. You want to sing better. You want to write better. You want to play better. So that's the frustrating thing about the arts, is there's always bucket loads of things to learn, and there's always more to learn than you know, if you know what I mean. But like way more. It's infinite. So it's an exciting thing because there's always somewhere to go, but also a frustrating thing is because you're never ever happy with where you're at. Yeah.
Talking about the blues, what is the most frustrating thing about your genre? Not necessarily being a musician, but about the genre.
I mean, the most frustrating thing is generally, and this is changing for the good, thankfully, is people, or especially younger generation, immediately switch off and won't participate or listen because they hear the word blues, because they perceive blues as their granddad's music or their dad's music, and that's the truth, because the blues has been around forever and it will be around forever, But I think it's like the most silly thing to do, is because if you look at modern bands that are hip and cool and stuff, and everyone's listening to, especially the younger generations, like the Black Keys and Kings of Leon and all those guys are blues bands, man, just in a very modern package, And I think young people don't even know that. So I think, forget about what the genre's called. and just go and experience it, and then make the decision for yourself at a live show type of thing. And I think that's the most frustrating thing.
Future projects, are you a bit busy with the new baby?
Yeah, the new baby's taking up plenty time, man. I'll tell you something, life-changing. But yeah, there's a lot on the cards. We are heading to Europe to launch Dear Silent Thieves there, and we do a yearly tour there. So that's cool. It's always great to get back to Europe. And then I've got my guitar weekends coming up at the end of the year, which is a highlight for me. It really is. It's 30 guitar players of all different levels, no matter how good or bad you are, come down and join me either in Clarence or Stellenbosch. 30, and I do group workshops, I teach group workshops, I do private lessons, but the whole focus is 30 guys with the same interest, all different playing levels, just jam together for like 3 days solid and eat, sleep, and drink and breathe guitar. It's like a nerd fest of nerds. It's just like, like my wife is so sick and tired of me talking about, guitars and pedals and all this technical stuff that only guitar players actually care about. And I think it's the same for like guitar players all over South Africa, and this is like a great opportunity for like people with that thing in common just to get together and just bust it out,
Where can people follow you on social networks?
All right, Facebook is Dan Patlansky Music. Twitter is @Dan_Patlansky, all small letters. And then website is danpatlansky.com.
We've been bragging about your music talent. Let's grab the guitar and can you play us a few songs?
Of course, man.
What do you have in mind today?
Well, I don't often do solo acoustic stuff, so I'll just play you a blues song I wrote many years ago called Hearthstone. Okay. And now look at me, baby. What have you done to me, yeah? And now look at me, baby. What have you done to me, yeah? Yeah, child. I was once blind, but now I can see. You've been cheating like hell, sneaking around somebody's home. You've been cheating like hell, sneaking around somebody's home. You a woman, baby knows with a hearthstone. Yeah, child. Baby knows with a hearthstone.